I look at it way different. I think the main beneficiaries of Lightning are going to be companies like Visa and MasterCard because we make their operations so much more efficient than having to jump through all of these hoops. We can give Visa and MasterCard actual real-time settlement of the transaction. So if they're willing to issue credit over Lightning, they'll save a lot of money, basically.
Welcome to the Rose Show podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am here with Jose Lemus. He is CEO of Ibex, revolutionizing the world of payment technology. They are the easiest and fastest way for retail and e-commerce businesses to accept instant Bitcoin payment over the Lightning Network. So excited to talk to you today, Jose. How you doing over there?
Good, good. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell us about Ibex. I saw you began in 2018. I know Lightning Network really took off in 20 and 21. So tell us how Ibex has evolved over the years.
Yeah, so we actually started as an OTC Rails. So what we wanted to do when the project started with my brother, it was just provide access to these technologies because we initially, since we got into it in 2017, we thought they were not only transformative and could change the world, but we really thought they were important. And we wanted to work in the space, and we wanted to see how we can, add a little bit our little contribution to Bitcoin and basically this new technology that allows for the store of value digitally, but it also allows for the transfer of value digitally without any third parties and any counterparty risk. And we were very excited to get started, and we set up an OTC desk. So to basically give access. As time went on, we pivoted into a technology company. So like you mentioned, delivering Lightning services. And right now where we're at is not only do we have that merchant payment solution, which is the first merchant payment solution for brick and mortar stores that ever was launched in the world. We launched in El Salvador and got, we onboarded clients such as Pizza Hut, Starbucks, IHG hotels, and world-class brands. We enabled them to actually accept Bitcoin payments, which was a huge deal at the time. And now we have our core product is actually Ibex Hub, which is a set of APIs that makes it easy for developers or anyone that wants to integrate Lightning into their products, apps, services. We make it easy for them. We remove a lot of the complexity of Lightning and managing Lightning infrastructure and just serve up the service. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Love it. So tell us your mission. What is your goal with Ibex? What you're planning for the future with payments and the Lightning Network?
Our mission at Ibex is to bring financial freedom to 8 billion people. That is our core mission. That's really what we're here for. We believe that with Lightning technology, we have a chance to actually deliver on that mission. And, we're knocking on wood that we get there, because we really do believe it's so important, right? A lot of times we don't think about financial limitations as the core problem with regards to our quality of life, but turns out they really are that. The financial technology we have access to puts a ceiling on how good our quality of life is. And the more we can bring sophisticated financial services to the world, the better off everybody will be.
I love that. So beautiful. Your mission is in line and directly reflective of Bitcoin, which is symbolic for freedom and truth, transparency, security, privacy. It changes the way we think. Fiat currency does change our thinking. We tend to be more short-termism versus long-termism. And I do believe that there's an argument to be made with Bitcoin bringing more peacefulness to our global economy and
Mm.
society.
Yeah,
So I love that
agree.
your mission is in line with
Mm.
that. Tell
And
us
not
more.
only, yeah, not only that. So you raised a couple of points there with um, fiat being distortive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just that it's distortive, distortive in this way that it's manipulating and this type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. The problem is that when we manipulate fiat, we're actually bringing in a lot of noise to the financial, not even the financial, but the commercial markets. And so we don't know what's actually valuable and what is not. And so right now we have a lot of noise across the
Mm-hmm.
board that's being brought in by the manipulation of our currencies, and not only our currencies but the interest rates on the currencies that we already manipulate. So we're adding layers of manipulation on layers of manipulation. And so the noise to me has gotten so bad that at this point it's even hard to solve complex social problems because we just don't know. So I was actually talking with somebody about the homeless problem, which is a huge social problem. And he has ideas on how to solve them. And I had other ideas on how to solve them. But at some point, I kind of went, you and I are arguing here. But the truth is that you don't know, and I don't know. And it's not because we're somehow dumb or our ideas are bad or anything like that. It's that the information we've been getting from the market in what actually provokes this homelessness problem is right now so bad because of the fiat manipulation. So that signal is so distorted, we can't even have a conversation to even start figuring out the problem. And that's where we are right now. And I brought up homelessness right now, but this is only like the tip of the iceberg. Everything else follows suit. Like, are we doing the right thing with the environment? Are we doing the right thing with the drug problem? Are we doing, there's a bunch of social economic problems right now that we can't even start to think of solving because the signals are so muddled.
Oh, I love that. You speak to the core and the philosophy of Bitcoin and the distortion that's occurred with fiat. We're no longer creators. It's like we're focused on this rat race, this incessant quest to always continually grow because we have to be working against this debasement of our currency. So we're always so focused on exponentially growing. And I think I spoke with Michael Saylor. We were talking about 7% in the US, and you need to always have like about 10% growth rate to be continuing to grow and not have your money lose value on you. Other countries, it's even worse. It's much higher. I love how you mentioned the signal from noise, and it's difficult to, everything becomes noise at some point because we're not able to sort through, and we have our perception has changed. Our perception of risk is changing, and we have opaqueness. So we don't even know what we don't know, and we have information overload at the same time, and our processing is distorted, like you said. So excellent points there. And rising debt. Let's add that to the top. They just keep increasing our debt, and it's unsustainable. We all know that. So, and Bitcoin is so much more than money. It's economic energy and it's freedom, and it offers these new applications and possibilities due to its decentralized nature. And at the same time, we're able to reduce costs and provide efficiency and innovation, which I love. And I want to talk about that. But I want to know about your background, because I have to say, Ibex is amazing, Jose, and you speak like a philosopher. So tell us how you came, your background, and how you came to Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Well, my background is I originally went to college to study mechanical engineering. Never really practiced as a mechanical engineer because first I went to work in one of my family's businesses, but very soon after, I believe, I didn't even last a year. We butted heads with my father so much, but not even a year after, I kind of struck out on my own and went initially. First project was bicycle assembly company in Guatemala, and it was with a friend. He had started it, then I came on and worked with him. After that, set up a coffee roasting company up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, actually. And after that, went back to Guatemala, saw some businesses, and eventually, I believe it was in 2012 when I first found out about Bitcoin. And before everybody gets all excited, I was dumb enough not to mine it, even though I downloaded the client, the Bitcoin Core client. I loved the project from the start because I understood it. Just being from Guatemala, it helped me a lot to see Bitcoin's value proposition initially. Anyway, didn't mine it. Went to some faucets because it was early 2012 when I found out about this, and there were still some faucets going on, but I wanted to buy it, and I never couldn't send money to Japan, which was where MT Gox was stationed at the time. And and so I decided, you know what, it's not the time, but I'll keep tabs on it. Then eventually 2017 rolled around. I was living in the Netherlands at that point in time, and I revisited Bitcoin and called up my brother and said, "Hey, you remember about that Bitcoin thing I told you about 5 years ago? I'm looking at it again, and it looks really promising. So you want to get into it?" He said yes, and we started buying as much Bitcoin as we could. At the end of the day, ran out of money to continue buying Bitcoin, and that's when we decided to start this project. Like, we want to do more than just be passively invested in Bitcoin. We want to actively help Bitcoin succeed. Yeah. That's kind of my Bitcoin story.
Wow, I love that. So, what do you see for Bitcoin in the future? Finite supply of 21 million. We know there's no debasement with that. It's incorruptible, immutable, global reserve asset, currency. What are your thoughts going forward, and where do you see Bitcoin in the next 5-10 years?
Well, just because of the space I'm operating in right now, I think I have uh, like a slightly different point of view from most people in Bitcoin and most Bitcoiners. I'll explain it this way. So far, most people talk about Bitcoin and talk about its store of value proposition and how it's, some people call it gold 2.0 or
digital gold.
the digital gold, and some of these terms get thrown around. But just because of the space we're in with the Lightning Network where we operate, we're really seeing in Lightning the industrial use case for Bitcoin. And as such, I have to say, and we can get into this a little bit deeper if you want, but to us, Bitcoin really presents the ultimate settlement technology. Nothing can move value around the world faster than Bitcoin. And this is truly amazing to see. And it's a very niche, I believe, uh, uh, specialized knowledge, payments and settlement. But for the people that are in that circle, this technology presents a huge opportunity to just improve their operations significantly. And like I said, we can go into this any way you want, but just wanted
I love that.
to kind of give that primer, and then we can continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, we live in a world of declining productivity, and we've been on this trajectory for quite some time. We also have higher costs, and these costs are not coming down. They're new fees. So we need to increase efficiency, and we need automation. And we also need innovation at the same time. So Lightning Network, Bitcoin, in my opinion, is much needed. So I want to talk about what you're seeing at Ibex with the mass adoption of Bitcoin. Have you seen your customers changing, growing? Have you noticed this is I always talk about, this is a bear market, but it's a time to build. And this is the time that we get everything ready for what's to come in the future. So I know you've been building and you've been growing. So I like to know how you're seeing it evolve in the past year or so, and the kind of growth you're seeing and the adoption, and what you think may be a catalyst to really sprout some real hyper Bitcoinization.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know if this is going to lead immediately to hyper Bitcoinization. I think in the long run it will.
Inevitable,
But
yeah.
but what we're seeing right now is we're seeing, first of all, our client profile is changing quite significantly. And I'm talking here about our hub solution, which is the one where we deliver an enterprise grade APIs so that our customers can build Lightning into their products and services. So, for example, at Miami 23, which is where we met actually, I remember we talked a little bit about this, but that's our announcement for our deal with Grupo Salinas. So that's kind of the type of customer we go out there, just to kind of put it in context. And we have the merchant payment solution, which works great, but the more interesting part is that the customers on the Ibex Hub solution have started to change. And they started to change from more crypto slash Bitcoin slash, wallets, exchanges, those type of customers and profiles, into more traditional finance. So right now, obviously, Grupo Salinas is the first conglomerate, which comes from the traditional business world. But we've gotten a lot of interest. And by the way, not just us, there have been multiple RFIs, which are requests for information, from traditional finance players going out to Lightning companies globally to figure out how this technology fits into their technology roadmap and if it can actually help their operations. And we believe once they have taken a deep dive into this technology, they will figure out that it's way better than anything that is currently out there. And we can be so much more efficient than anything they've known before. So I think that's going to be starting to bring the industrial case for Lightning online. Bear in mind that in a lot of these solutions, you won't even know it's Lightning or Bitcoin that's being involved to settle transactions. Users might just see, their their balance, their USD, Fiat, pounds, whatever, being sent globally at any scale, but not understand that the technology that's underneath this, that's running all of these payments, is actually Bitcoin and Lightning.
Love that. Well, I want you to tell us in your terms, what is the Lightning Network? We know it's a layer 2 protocol on top of Bitcoin, the base layer. And I've been hearing that there's many more layers to come, layer 3, 4, 5 in the future. And so tell us exactly, in the simplest terms for everyone to understand, what exactly is the Lightning Network?
Well, how I explain the Lightning Network, and I can break it down two ways. So I'll start with the maybe slightly more sophisticated
Please
way,
do.
and then we can go into a slightly more, common, less perfect, but more easy to understand, let's call it. So at its core, what Lightning is a system of escrow. So what does this mean? For me to be able to transact Bitcoin instantly with you, so to speak, I have to first send you the Bitcoin, and then you send it back to me, right? And that's an escrow system where you already know I prepaid you. And then I'm just telling you, hey, Ro, just deduct $5 or deduct $10, and you're going to return to me 900 or whatever is the amount. So if I send you $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, right, you can be sure you have it, so you're covered, and you're able to say, okay, I'll disburse $5 worth of Bitcoin on your behalf. And that's an escrow system. It's a unique escrow system in the sense that the moment I send you that transaction, tied to it is another transaction that you sign, returning the $1,000 to me. And that way we're both covered. So that's what makes it unique, is that we can build these smart contracts, quote unquote. I like to call them self-executing contracts that allow for these type of interactions. So that's the system of escrows, and that's what allows really for the instant transfer of value. So every Bitcoin that gets spent on the Lightning Network is real Bitcoin. First of all, we have to understand it's not like there's a synthetic Bitcoin or anything like that. It's true Bitcoin. The only thing that's happening is that it's pre-spent, and I'm putting this in quotation marks, because it's basically just me proving to you, okay, I have $1,000 and you're returning $1,000 to me. That's a channel. That's a way where I can like start to spend Bitcoin with you. And the way I spend it is, instead of publishing a transaction in the main blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain, is we're just updating that contract with my new balance. So I send you 1,000, you return 1,000. I send you 1,000, you return 900. I send you 1,000, you return 500. I send you 1,000, you return 200. And so you're keeping more of my Bitcoin as we transact.
Very nice.
Let me know if that made sense,
Yes.
please.
It does make sense. I like that it's instant, that's key, and it's decentralized. And those are some key points of that. That's why you're able to reduce the costs, because you don't have those intermediaries. Now I'm going to throw some questions at you. That common questions that we see circling around, and maybe it's misinformation or lack of education. People are going to say this, okay, Jose, works great. I have money in my wallet and I transfer to you instant. But the credit card companies, I use credit with them. I'm able to not have that money. And I'm using those credit cards and I'm able to buy more than I can actually afford right now. How does that work with Lightning Network?
Well, the truth of the matter is, in that example, credit is non-existent in Lightning. So let's start off with
I
that.
love that.
So that is,
This is education point number one.
yeah, credit does not exist in Lightning. And to your point, if I want to spend money I don't have, I have to figure out somebody to lend me that Bitcoin to spend, right? And how you do it, if you can even do it, that's TBD. And I'm sure some people will start to figure out how to do loans in Bitcoin, but we're still a ways away due to Bitcoin's volatility. But what's interesting is that in that example of the transaction, of the credit card transaction, is that you don't pay it immediately, but Visa or MasterCard or Amex or whoever has to pay it immediately. I'm going to use quotation marks here.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is that the merchant doesn't see that money immediately. They just have like a record that says, oh, your Visa, MasterCard, Amex, whoever owes you this. But that money takes days to get there. Well, depending on where you are in the world, right? Takes a day, 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a week. And the other unfortunate part of this is that due to chargebacks, that transaction is never really cleared or settled till after sometimes 180 days. So anybody that's been a PayPal merchant probably can understand when I say the sale isn't final until you have it on your bank account. And in PayPal's case, I think it's very restrictive in the sense that, first of all, yeah, you have your balance on PayPal, but you can't really wire it into your bank account when the sale was made. And then they take time, and then if something happens, that somebody raises a complaint or whatever, they'll take the money back from you. That does not happen in Lightning. Lightning just settles immediately. All of this to say that the credit card companies actually have to do their own internal settlement, and they have to go through different banks. So let me break down the flow roughly. So credit card transactions, once it gets swiped, the card, an instruction goes to the merchant's bank. That merchant bank then communicates with MasterCard. MasterCard talks to the bank from the issuing card. So there's two banks there, and there's MasterCard. Then to see if you have actually enough money or are allowed enough credit to make the transaction. The bank responds to MasterCard. MasterCard responds to the merchant bank, yeah, we'll pay it. And then then the transaction is quote unquote accepted. And then MasterCard has to move the money from the customer's bank to the merchant bank some way, somehow. That settlement and all of those movements could actually be made significantly more efficient if they were done on Lightning. So most people say, oh, Lightning versus Visa, Lightning versus MasterCard. I look at it way different. I think the main beneficiaries of Lightning are going to be companies like Visa and MasterCard, because we make their operations so much more efficient than having to jump through all of these hoops. We can give Visa and MasterCard actual real-time settlement of the transaction. So if they're willing to issue credit over Lightning, they'll save a lot of money, basically.
Wow, that's amazing. See, that's a great point that you made, that you're actually going to be working hand in hand, and you could help Visa and MasterCard and American Express, all these, credit card processing companies. And instead of, many people think you're going to be putting them out of business, that they're not going to be around, but actually you could help their operation in increasing efficiency and reducing costs. And that's key. So those are important points there. It's not just payment transfer, then you're also, it's like you're doing some type of database management. Is that correct?
Roughly speaking, yes. But it all ties back into the technology we're using. Because at its core, and this is actually why Lightning is so much more efficient, the whole issue with global payments is that you have to coordinate a bunch of databases
Mm-hmm.
into, reflecting the correct balance at
Yes.
any one point in time. And how the system is set up right now is most global transactions touch at least 5 databases, or 4 databases, but one database gets touched twice. And here's how it works. From the bank that is sending the money, it goes to Swift.
Mm-hmm.
From Swift, it goes to the corresponding bank. From the corresponding bank, it goes back to Swift. And then from Swift, it goes to the receiving bank. So that's basically how it is. And those are 5 database movements. And that's what makes payments really clunky and slow and introduces a lot of friction. Because in 5 moves, there is a lot of risk. There's fat thumb errors, there's cancellation risk. A lot of it is, did we even send the money to the right person in the right jurisdiction? Something might get missed. Did we get the correct bank account? Do we have to go back, correct? So it is very complicated. And the way to hedge that risk is to slow it down. Because what you don't want is to give out money to the wrong person. Because if you cash them out, you're out of money. Banks don't like to be out of money. That's a no-no. So
I don't
what
think
they do
anyone
is,
does. I don't think anyone does,
yeah,
but yes.
but especially banks.
Yes.
So anyway, that's how it's set up right now. What really sets Lightning apart is that we're operating on top of the first global financial database. And actually, I believe personally, it's going to be the only global financial database because it cannot be set up any other way than how Bitcoin was set up. How it came to be is, to me, a true miracle. But at the end of the day, we have now this global financial database, which is our single point of truth on which every Lightning company operates. And because we're all operating in this same database, we're able to have actual instant execution of transactions. And because, as I mentioned, we don't have credit, so everybody already committed their funds, that gives us settlement finality,
I like that.
instant settlement finality. And that's nothing that can be replicated with current payments technology. So we're very far ahead here.
I love that. Made that point about the chargebacks are non-existent. And now you compare it to the Swift, and we having an e-commerce business, we accept payments around the world. And when they do ACH or transfers, they have to use it. They always ask for my Swift number. And so we have to process that way. And so I want to ask you, why is it such a complex, so many steps? Why are there so many issues? Is it because of the currency exchange, or is it seems that even domestically it takes 2-3 days to settle? Why so many steps? Why so complex?
So the current payment system, in my opinion, again, is so clunky because it's built on top of really old technology. And that's the main problem. I don't know if you know this or your viewers know this, but the first wire transfer was actually executed in the 1870s. And the technology hasn't changed significantly since then. It's always been a ledger that is being affected by a communication that's being sent. In the first instance, it was over wires. Now we do it over wireless, if you want, but it's kind of the same system. It's, I have my ledger. Let me send you this information that you have to pay out to X here, and I will be on the hook to you, right? And then that new ledger is affected, but there's a level of trust here. Because I'm just telling you, listen, please give this guy X amount of dollars and I'll pay you back. And so that makes it really slow.
An outdated model.
Yeah.
It's an old archaic model there, it seems.
Yeah. And so we can, we have a lot of fancy technology around this, but at its core, that's what's happening. And when I talk about coordination of 5 databases, that's basically what's going on. I tell Swift, please let this corresponding bank know that they have to send to this other bank this amount of dollars, and I'm somehow on the hook for it. And so Swift tells the corresponding bank. The corresponding bank says, yes, I have, I'll cover his things. Please continue with the instructions to the next bank. And then the next bank says, okay, I have a certainty because I'm receiving this message from Swift and I have the corresponding bank that's covering this transaction and I will disburse X amount of money. But at the end of the day, we're all updating databases. Whether we do it digitally or by hand, it's at this point irrelevant. What is true is that there was a lot of potential for mistakes to happen in that simple transaction.
Absolutely.
And how we hedge that risk is we slow things down and we charge fees.
Exactly. And that's why you're able to reduce these costs, because you're eliminating all those steps, all those different databases and all those intermediaries, and you're able to just be efficient and have it just go instantly. Now, with the point of the chargebacks, I know there's some people, being in an e-commerce business myself for many years, I know a lot of people prefer to pay with that potential for disputes, that in case I don't provide them the equipment that they are happy with, let's say, they have that recourse available to them. So they like that potential of a chargeback, the customer. So in this case with Lightning Network, let's say they use the Lightning Network with Ibex Pay and they buy equipment, and let's say the equipment isn't what they expected, or maybe something doesn't work and the merchant is there and doesn't want to give them a return. What kind of recourse do they have in that situation with this instant transfer of money?
Well, at this point, the recourse is to go back to the merchant and complain. It's kind of like paying cash in this sense. So I understand that Bitcoin feels digital, and it is to an extent, but in a very real sense, it operates a lot more like cash than any other digital payment. So how do you resolve disputes when you paid cash? That's how you have to do it at this point in time with Bitcoin. And if we move over to Lightning, it's going to depend a lot on who you're paying with. So for example, let's say Visa and MasterCard decide we'll keep the cards and everything as is. We'll just leverage this technology to make our settlement faster, to, do transactions easier. In that case, you could potentially still have these chargeback mechanisms because it's Visa and MasterCard that are offering that cover.
The protection, yeah.
And you can also have new fintechs built on Lightning that offer that advantage if they so want to. But again, it's going to be an opt-in program, if you will. And if you're paying really just with Lightning, then you are really down back to cash transactions.
I love that. That's great for people to understand. It's like having instant cash. It's like a cash transaction. You're able to just like send it instantly around the world anywhere. And that's a great way of people understanding it, because Jose, it's like a different way of thinking, and we just have to get accustomed. That's why it's great that we're speaking today. People have to just get their mindset into thinking differently about how things could be and should be. And it's a really outdated system that this payment model is just a fragmented and outdated system. And with our global world that we live in today, this is much needed upgrade to our current system, or a completely new level, actually. So I want to talk about the size of payments, and that's an important part. We talk about micro payments and how we're able to accommodate different sizes. So tell us how small these payments can be instead of that big bulky batching that usually is required.
Yeah, well, that is a super interesting point, and here's where we also become more efficient, I believe, because we're changing the payments paradigm. So what used to be true is that you wanted to, as you mentioned, batch as many transactions into one single large transaction, one large money movement, because that would actually, be the most efficient way to do these transfers, especially when you're going global, right? When you're local, it changes the game, but if you're doing global payments, you want it to batch as much as you can and then send one big transaction. But with Lightning, actually the opposite is true. The smaller the payments, the better, the more efficient we can be. And that's just the idiocracy. I don't know, the way the Lightning Network works. It's that is easier, the smaller you go. And so we're changing that paradigm. And how I see it is actually very similar to what happened around the early 80s, late 70s, where the computing paradigm at that moment was that you wanted to do batch instruction processing when you had these big mainframes. And now, with the advent of the microprocessor and everything in the 80s, it started to change. It became not only possible, but even better to do real-time processing of instructions. And I think Lightning is bringing that to finance. So what I like to say is that Lightning is going to be to finance what the internet was to communication. And it is really going to be that profound of a change. And we can sit here and speculate, but honestly, a lot of what's going to be possible in the future, we can't even imagine today, because we're bringing payments technology that enables transactions at such a level that before it was unthinkable. So there's new commercial models that are going to be possible in a year or 2 years' time that today we can't even think of because we're not in that world yet. And of course, there's some low-hanging fruit that we can point to and say, oh, this might be possible now, such as IoT devices talking to each other and actually being able to monetize. We're talking about AI paying each other as well. So machine-to-machine payment, we know that is going to be a thing, but it's only feasible when you have this level of granularity in your payments and this immediacy of payments that Lightning allows for. So I do believe that this technology will get adopted, not only because, it's better, but it's needed.
Absolutely.
There's no other way to execute on this.
Excellent points, as always, Jose. I love the use of the word granularity, and that is key regarding these payments. And, you talk about this new world that we're entering, and I want to make an important point, and I want you to, and let all the audience know, is that a lot of people are confused, and they think, oh, this is a real barrier to entry as well, too, in acceptance, is they say, fiat currency is here to stay, and it's not going to be collapsing. And they think in very extreme ways, and they think it's either Bitcoin or fiat. And I think that an important point to make is that they can coexist, and that I know your Ibex Pay converts to fiat. So it's not just that you have to be solely in Bitcoin. Bitcoin and fiat can coexist. So could you please tell us about that point for everyone to understand?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is that, at least in the Lightning Network, because we have that finality of settlement of transactions, we're able to immediately convert the value that's being delivered over the Lightning Network into fiat. And to your point about them coexisting, I think I would take it one step further. It's not just about coexisting. I think that either, I don't care, like, it's not, it depends on how you want to look at it, but you could say that fiat is going to use Lightning so that it can move faster
Yes.
globally, or you can say Lightning is going to use fiat to gain adoption. But those two things are going to merge together, and that's where I firmly believe we're going, because we do need a better payments technology, or a better settlement technology. I think that's key to understand here, that when you're using Lightning as a settlement technology, you don't really care what asset is on either end. And you can go from dollars to Mexican pesos to British pounds to euros to Japanese yen. You don't care what's moving at the endpoints. You're just leveraging this hyper efficient network to really move that money around as fast as possible. And that velocity of money is going to be super impactful for global commerce.
Absolutely, the velocity of money. And I love that it's important to not be so extreme in our views. And I love how you take it a step further and you say they're going to not only, coexist, but it's like they're going to be helping each other gain adoption. And Fiat's going to help Lightning Network, and Lightning Network is going to make Fiat more efficient, faster, and better. So great points there. I love it. It's just that whole Bitcoin philosophy of everyone working together instead of it being adversarial. It's like everything can build upon each other and we can all elevate together globally. And that's the key, is to have efficiency, innovation, and a new level. And this is really great. It just expands our minds. And I want to talk about privacy. Privacy is
Mhm.
very important. And you talk about know your customer, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
information harvesting going on
Mhm.
nowadays. So tell us how Lightning Network helps with privacy and security.
Okay, so I want to be very careful here, because it helps to a point. I'm not gonna, I don't want to be fooling anybody. So when we talk about Lightning, we really should think about it, you know, if you're not a bank or a financial institution, just as an individual, whoever you're using to handle Lightning transactions, or whatever amount of money you're going to be putting into Lightning, you really want to be putting only what you would put into your wallet. So if you're not comfortable walking around with $10,000,
Mm-hmm.
don't put $10,000 in a Lightning wallet. It's not, it's not what it's meant for. This is really spending money, walking around money. And so if you feel comfortable with $500, then yeah, put that into a Lightning wallet. In terms of privacy, there is a layer, an added layer of, let's say, complexity to figure out who owns what. But depending on the wallet you're using, you might be asked to submit information, you might not be asked to submit information. It's going to be somewhat transparent, but at the end of the day, if you're in a custodial wallet solution, your transactions can be blocked. You can lose access to your funds if you don't comply with information requirements. There's a lot of levers here to pull, and a lot of strings to pull. I think Bitcoin and Lightning as well are a good start on pushback against very onerous KYC AML regulations. But, and by the way, at Ibex, we we're in that world. So the people we provide services to, they do KYC, AML to all their clients. We KYC our customers. Uh, so it's not our solutions it's not privacy oriented, so to speak, because we want to bring the mainstream in, and the mainstream, this is what they need to feel comfortable with the technology. That being said, what I think is really important is we have to start changing the narrative around KYC and AML. First of all, we have to understand that regulators and the lawmakers, even, they are not inherently evil, bad people. They see a problem, they're going about what they think in their head is a good way to solve for it. I personally disagree with the premises on which it is built, but I want to have that conversation because we have to start to explain to the regulators and the lawmakers how much these requirements are hurting us. And they really are. It's not apparent yet. Let's call it global north, but us in the global south, we feel it every day. So the reason we don't have financial inclusion today, to give a quick and dirty example, is not because, or banking inclusion at least, it's not because bankings don't want to bank the underserved or the poor or whatever. It's that they can't. If you have, as a bank, a requirement to KYC AML all of your customers, and one of those requirements is a proof of address. Well, this is great in the US and Europe and these countries. Oh yeah, here I'll give you my water bill, whatever you want. But good luck going to a village in the middle of the mountain where there's no running water, no electricity. The only phone service they have is a cell phone, prepaid, if that. And, and there's not even a street name. Like, so the requirement that you're pushing for is actively disenfranchising 50% of the world, at least. And then we add on top of this that the KYC AML raises the cost of servicing a client. Well, if I'm a bank, I understand them perfectly. And you cost me a year, let's say $1, and I'm not able to make $1 off of you, I'm not going to bank you. It's as easy as that. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of these people, they're trying to solve for a very specific problem, but they're going about it in a way that is hurting billions of people today. And we got to bring them to the table and start to have these conversations. Workarounds that Lightning and Bitcoin present, they're a good start, and it'll maybe force some hands to sit at the table. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's a good and viable long-term solution, because there's always handcuffs they can put on us. What we need to do is sit with them at the table and have a dialogue and explain how much their policies hurt, and not only hurt, but hurt the poorest people in the world. And they're evil. The policies, I mean, not the people. The policies are evil as they're structured right now. And not only that, they're not even solving the problem they want to solve. So there you
Exactly.
go.
Wow, beautifully said. It's unfortunate these policies hurt so many people. We have to focus on the greatest good for all. But I sort of just like to get like a bullet points of direct benefits for the merchants as well as the people with using Lightning Network.
Okay. So for the merchant, I would say the core benefit of it is no chargebacks.
Love that.
That's secondly, we can point to lower transaction fees, especially if you stay in Bitcoin. We have transaction fees of only 0.5% for our merchant payment solution. So I believe that's a very compelling proposition for the merchants. And for the customers, it is just the payments of the future. Right now, we're not seeing it because the adoption hasn't gotten there yet. But eventually, there will be services that you can really only pay with Lightning. So I'll give you an example that maybe you, as a content creator, can appreciate. If a platform like YouTube were to adopt Lightning technology, instead of me having to sit through ads or so that you can get paid, you can set a per second charge. So as long as your viewer is with you watching your video, right, you're going to be getting a per second payment in Satoshis. And this could be 1 cent, could be half a cent, could be 0.0001 cent. And as you grow your user base and those 0.001 cents start to flow in every second that you're getting watched, then it becomes real money. And the cool thing about this is that it is a transaction where you're getting value for value. So your viewers, right, your listeners are happy because they're able to pay only for what they consume, and you're happy because you know your viewers are getting value equivalent to what they're paying. And we get rid of all of these weird monetization models that you have now. So subscriptions, ad revenue model, which you're the product, and all of those weird monetization strategies. So although right now for let's say individual, there's no readily apparent use case outside of sending money globally. So if I'm just paying in my local store, there's probably not a lot of incentive here, but it's an alternative payment method. As solutions become more sophisticated, they will be these use cases where there are services that you might want that you can only pay with Lightning.
Love that. That's a great, excellent example that you gave us. You know, we spend most of our lives online. And I know most of my transactions of purchases are done online. I mean, I go locally sometimes, but I'm making my, shopping online. Everything's done online. So it seems that Lightning Network is really going to elevate that shopping and buying experience, as well as from the customer side, as well as the merchant. And
Yeah, and as well being able to pay for new things.
mm-hmm.
So there might be products and services that are not getting delivered today, not because somebody can't think of them or because they're impossible to make, but because it's impossible to monetize.
Mm-hmm.
And by having this very efficient monetization tool, you're going to enable a whole host of new products and services. At least that's my theory.
I think that's a great theory. Makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of things we don't even know that we are missing out on that aren't here because of the means of lacking monetization. And so I think that's an excellent point, and also a very important point is value centered. And we're here to create value. That's why we're here today, is we want to create value for our audience and for everyone. And so to have that Lightning Network help bring the value back to transactions is just so important. It's just great. So I have to ask you, what are the barriers to entry? Why has there it seems that this should be adopted right away. And it seems that Visa, MasterCard, they should be the first ones to come and want to use Lightning Network. What are you seeing as barriers?
Well, right now, first of all, the technology still has to get to a point where we can actually do MasterCard and Amex and global payments amount of volume. Most people don't know this, but global payments is around 500 or 600 trillion dollars a year. That means it's a little shy of $2 trillion per day that gets routed globally. This requires a lot of engineering work to be able to get done. We're not there yet. So that's the first one. And we will, I have confidence, and we'll probably get there faster than most people anticipate. I was actually having this discussion with a friend, and he asked me like, what do you think of Lightning adoption, and are we moving slow? Are we moving fast? What's your take? And I actually said, I think it's going to happen both slower and faster than people think. And the reason is it's going to be slower at the start, but then once it gets to a certain point, it's going to happen so much faster than anybody's expecting that it's very difficult to gauge timeframes here. So anyway, I think that kind of sums it up for me right now. It's technology needs to mature, but then also from an educational standpoint, these companies need to start to get comfortable with the technology and trust it. A lot of this financial things come down to trust. And it's also why I think the Bitcoin blockchain is really the only blockchain on which this can happen, because it's the only one that's going to have that level of trust to actually have the opportunity to move trillions of dollars.
Exciting. I have to say, hearing you speak about this is exciting. I know it's difficult to put a timeline on this, but in your opinion, and I also agree, I want to add before I ask you this question, is that that's how technology occurs. It's like you get this little something, it's like a tipping point, and then all of a sudden we get this mass exponential growth. And it's like we make giant leaps forward. And we're just at that point. It's like we're getting ready to turn that corner. So overall, from what you're seeing, looking at the historical patterns, what type of timeline do you anticipate, just your opinion, that we will see Lightning Network become the main payment processing mechanism?
To give you a range, not
A
stick to
ballpark.
like
Just give us a ballpark.
ballpark, I believe between 2030 and 2035 is where it really becomes the dominant settlement network. I think earlier than that, it'll start to get leveraged by a lot of companies to manage internal settlement. There's a lot of industries where this is really, really key. So to give you an example, I heard the other day, Airbnb spends somewhere in the neighborhood of $700 million, so almost $1 billion in banking fees, FX charges, and just wrong payments or chasing payments. And they have a whole host of people just chasing payments, basically. And the beautiful thing about Lightning is that it basically solves all three problems. So companies of that nature, they might want to switch over to Lightning just because it saves them $700 billion. And maybe not the $700 billion completely, but if they can cut that by $500 million, that's $500 million of savings per year. It's a pretty big incentive, I think.
Agree, absolutely. That's a huge cost saving, that much needed. Inflation is cumulative, and we see core inflation very sticky here in the United States. And I think everyone can agree prices are up, costs are up, and there's no sign of costs coming down. So it is key, absolutely key, to reduce these costs. And so this is, to me, very welcomed and essential. 2030s, that makes sense. That corresponds with a lot of macroeconomic forecasts out there with things changing. And I could see that. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that. So how can people prepare? Can they? how can they be ready for this type of technology coming forward? Any opportunities or investment opportunities? We always try to look at what we can do to prepare for coming structural
Mhm.
changes.
So first of all, I would say education is key.
Mm.
So I imagine just the fact that they're listening to your podcast, it starts them off on the right track. I know you have great content and have had great educators on your show, like Michael Saylor, Seyfedina Moose, and
Thank you. And you.
that's great.
And Jose Lemus too.
Thank you. So first of all, just get educated, then start experimenting with the technology. One thing is to hear about it and hear me telling you about, oh, well, you can do this and you can do that. But another one is actually getting the technology in your hands, which most people can do now. If you have a Cash App, guess what? You already have it because Cash App has
Yes.
Lightning. If if not, you can download there's a whole host of Lightning wallets online. You can just Google them and download them and start sending out payments. Get with a friend, download one of you downloads one wallet, the other one downloads the other Lightning wallet, and you send across a couple of cents. Doesn't have to be much. But as you get familiar with this technology and get it demystified for you and get comfortable with it, then you can start to think about, well, do I really believe in it? If so, there are going to be Lightning companies going public in the near future. There's, for most of the listeners, they're going to be US based, I think. And as such, you can't really do private equity investments just because of compliance stuff, but they're going to be, first of all, you can get exposure to the assets. So buying Bitcoin is always a good thing. And then beyond that, you're probably going to be able to invest in some of these Lightning companies as they go public. And that would be another recommendation I have.
Thank you so much for that. And I think you made a key point there is that you learn by experience. So the best thing to do is, even if it's just a few cents, just use the apps, use these platforms so you get familiarized with it and you're able to prepare for when they could become mainstream. And it's the most important thing is you could read all the books, watch all the podcasts, but use it for yourself and get comfortable with them. Wise words. And yeah, we'll be looking for those other
Yeah.
companies that come forward with it. I want to talk about Ibex, Ibex
Mhm.
Pay. You have created an amazing company, and I urge everyone to check out your website. Very impressive, Jose. You're so down to earth, so easy to speak to. And we met at Bitcoin 2023. But wow, what a massive, beautiful company you've created. And so I want to go into Ibex Pay, and I want to talk about Ibex Hub. I know that's a core product of yours. So please tell us what Ibex Hub is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I alluded to it during our conversation, but Ibex Hub is our enterprise grade solution to enable companies to integrate Lightning capabilities into their products and
Mm,
services. So,
integration. I love that.
so calling down, a little favor from the gods, let's say somebody like QuickBooks wanted to start giving their customers the ability to collect payments in Lightning, instead of them having to go through the whole process of developing their own Lightning technology and then figuring out how to service it, maintain it, etc. They could very simply through API calls connect to our own infrastructure and start offering this capability to their customers within a couple of months. So we reduce the time to market. We abstract a lot of the complexities of the managing of the Lightning Network away from our customers, and we do it in a probably a safer, faster, and less expensive way than somebody that's that's not their core business. And that is the key here. So we're taking the thesis of cloud servers and applying it to Lightning. And just how most people don't want to do their own server infrastructure, or it doesn't make sense for them to do their own server infrastructure, you're better off with AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, whatever flavor you like. Most companies and people will be better off contacting a service like ours to help them run their Lightning infrastructure.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Focus on your core business function and outsource to an expert like your company. Ibex Hub sounds awesome. Very smart. I like that. Spoken like a true entrepreneur as you scale your business, because we've scaled many businesses, and outsourcing is key and focusing on the best. And Ibex is certainly up there. And so I want to ask you about your Ibex Pay terminal transaction amount, how 2.5 thousand is the threshold, and then you go to an on-chain transaction. So could you discuss that amount and why that is the threshold, and what is the on-chain transaction?
Yeah, so an on-chain transaction is a regular Bitcoin transaction, which you get the Bitcoin address and you send a payment there. And it's what most people that have transacted in Bitcoin so far are used to. So that's an on-chain transaction. So
Is that done in the base layer?
Bitcoin address. It's done in the base layer, exactly.
Okay, great. Got that. I got that down.
So yeah, it's just a regular Bitcoin address, and you send the money to it, and hopefully you sent the right amount, because there are challenges with on-chain transactions. The Lightning transactions, and why the limit is around 2.5K right now, or that's what we recommend. By the way, this is not saying you couldn't try a larger transaction. The issue is that because of channel bandwidth issues, and by channel we're talking about that escrow that we set up initially, right? So you're only able to send enough money as that which is in escrow, right? So if I only have, let's say, $5,000 in escrow with you, if I do try to say spend $6,000, you're gonna say, listen, you don't have 6K, you have 5K. This is what I'll allow you to move with me, right? And so that limit of 2.5K is really about, do we have, and not only we, but is the payment that's going to be coming in going to find a route to us where everybody has 2.5K. Now, 2.5K right now in the Lightning Network has a very decent chance of going through. That's why we recommend it. Like, we don't see a lot of those payments fail, if any. But beyond that, it starts to get a little bit iffy. So that's the recommendation of that. It's not because of, let's say, not necessarily technical limitations, if you will, or money limitations. It's more that, can we find a way from point A to point B where everybody has 2.5 thousand, $2.5 thousand.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. Do you think that number will change in time?
No, it'll change, and it'll change quick, especially as the price of Bitcoin continues to go up. Then automatically you're able to have more value transfer in the current setup you have, because the channels are established in Satoshis in Bitcoin.
Yes.
And so as the value of Bitcoin goes up, the transactional throughput of those channels goes up proportionally. But then beyond that, pretty soon we're going to start to see stable coin transactions on the Lightning Network. The technology is already getting tested by a lot of Lightning companies out there. And so once you have stable coins on Lightning, then you remove any transactional throughput limitation because you're decoupling the value of that you're transferring from the delivery mechanism. And so let's say theoretically, you could do a $100 million transaction over a couple of Satoshis.
Wow, that's exciting to see that. So I want to ask you about the volatility of Bitcoin. Now, that's a real concern for many people that, Bitcoin is so volatile. How do you make payment transfer using a Lightning network based on such a volatile asset? What do you say to that?
Well, that's the beauty of Lightning, the instant nature of its settlement. Because it settles instantly, we can actually sell the corresponding amount of Bitcoin as it comes in real time. And what this allows us is any Bitcoin that comes in gets instantly converted into fiat, whichever we want to at that point in time. And at that point, the volatility is completely removed because you no longer hold the Bitcoin, you just used it to deliver value. So in this sense, Lightning presents a very interesting value proposition because you don't have to care about Bitcoin and you don't necessarily have to care about the volatility because everything just happens so fast that the moment you, let's say, created a buy transaction to go into Bitcoin is virtually the same moment you created a sell transaction to get out of Bitcoin. And so there's no spread.
That's it. I love it. That's how people need to think differently. And they're not used to this instant. There's usually a delay. So they think, oh, there's inefficient, like it's saying currency can exchange. When someone sends us payment in a different currency and it gets exchanged, by the time I receive it, could be even getting less than the value based upon the currency exchanges and movements. But since this is instant, you don't have to even worry about that. Thank you so much, Jose, for the explanation.
Exactly. And even more importantly, let's say for those who are more into the accounting side of this, it also removes the accounting overhead of needing to account for capital gains because there's none, either gains or losses. It's just value. It's the value you charge for. That's what you're receiving, and no need to
account for those inefficiencies.
For those,
and those discrepancies or those spreads, like you said. And it's a different way of thinking, and that's what we're here to enlighten people on. You don't need to be concerned about that volatility because it's just instant. And so I want to ask you about the Lightning invoices. I think I read that they last about 15 minutes. Is that correct?
Depends. Again, you can actually set it up to however long you want to. The idea of having invoices that expire is to prevent attacks, so you don't have a lot of trash in your database because somebody can spam invoices that are never to be paid. So it's about preventing vulnerabilities in your system, and you can really mix and match it as you want. It's up to whoever's coding really in the solution that you're using, how long they want to give it. Sometimes it's convenient to give it less actually. Then we also have evergreen invoices. So us and Ibex, one of the services we provide, we just don't give our customers the capability to receive and send payments over Lightning which means generating and reading invoices. We also add functionality on top of that. One of them is the stable Fiat accounts, which stabilizes the value by creating instant buy and sell orders, right? But the other thing we do is we have leveraging LNURL, we have evergreen invoices that we can actually tie to a dollar amount. So this becomes interesting for, let's say, vending machines that you want to pay in Bitcoin or have the ability to receive Bitcoin, but you also want to receive always the same amount of money, regardless of Bitcoin's value. You can have a static invoice that will always reference the price of Bitcoin instantly once the customer scans it. And so there's a lot of interesting things you can do here with the technology, actually, without wanting to bore
Absolutely. Very
your
exciting.
listeners.
Yeah, exactly. I like the technical nature is interesting. It's fascinating. And, it's all based on the theory of efficiency. And like you said, you want to sometimes end them sooner because you don't want to have too much and too many of them. So I like that. It's just at the core, it's efficiency, it's fast, it's instant. And let's just briefly talk about the cost benefits, just tangible hard costs. We have all these amazing benefits and these new amazing updates to what we are, this archaic system. However, let's put the numbers side by side. I believe I read the transaction fees are about 0.5% and like maybe up to 0.8%. What are the current fees on moving money right now?
Well, it really depends on what type of movement we're talking about. Some of them carry flat cost, as most people who have sent an international wire are familiar with. There are companies like TransferWise and Venmo that do it somewhat differently, and they don't have necessarily a fixed cost attached to it. So there's a lot of mix and matches. But where I think this technology really is going to leapfrog ahead is on a particular nature of Lightning invoices that we didn't get into, which is how Lightning operates is the person who's receiving the payment presents information to the person that's paying that contains all the routing as well as the amount, which makes it super efficient for receiving payments, like ridiculously efficient. And the cool thing about Lightning is that those invoices have only two states, paid or unpaid. If it's paid, it means everything happened correctly. There's no misrouting, there's no missed amounts, nothing of that nature. If it is unpaid, no money moved, meaning no money left the account of the person who's paying, and no money was received on the other end because it just didn't happen. And what this presents to settlement people and payments people is certainty that their books are right. And here's where the efficiency really kicks in is right now there's a lot of compliance and regulatory infrastructure that's built in, and there's a lot of back office work going into making sure that payments get routed correctly. That's where, the Airbnb example takes hold, which is why are they spending so much money chasing payments? It's because payments don't really always go or happen as they are supposed to happen. But with Lightning, we eliminate completely that possibility. And that is super powerful to anybody that's interested in settlements, especially globally.
Absolutely. A lot of benefits that we aren't even fully aware of. And it's just a new level of payment transfer. Thank you so much for that. Now, I read about your Ibex Pay donations, and Is that what you were referencing earlier regarding podcasts? How you can just send money to someone instead of having the ads? Could you tell us how you can do that? It's like a peer to peer that you can just directly like zap them or something. You can just send money
Yeah.
to them. Can you tell us about that? How Ibex is doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this actually leverages the LNURL technology I mentioned earlier. Uh, what you do is you basically, as a podcaster or as a writer, you can create your Ibex Pay account and you can generate one of these static QR codes that I mentioned. And so you can put those up in every video or in your website or wherever you want to digitally, or even print them out and hang them in a poster at your local coffee shop. And then everybody that has access to a Lightning wallet can scan it and just either send a fixed amount that you request with the static QR, or you can leave it open and they can send you any amount that they feel
Wow.
they want to contribute to you. And those are the Ibex Pay donations. They're being used, I believe, by one or two podcasters right at this moment.
Wow. And you can just send it directly without any intermediaries. You see, it's a new way of thinking of things, how you can directly compensate someone for their education or their podcast, their creation. I
Mhm.
love that. So you have Ibex Hub, we talked about, Ibex Pay point of sale, which works on any device. Love that. And then I love your payment gateway. And what I read was that once again, it's that integration term. I love how everything works together and it
Mhm.
can integrate with Shopify. Now,
Yeah.
everyone's heard of Shopify. We all know the ticker shop. So tell us how you and how has that been evolving and tell us how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So this actually a couple of months ago we developed this plugin into Shopify and I believe another couple of e-commerce websites,
Mhm.
WooCommerce, Equid now. So it's very simple. You create again your Ibex Pay account and you go into your Shopify account and you let them know that you want to integrate with Ibex Pay. They'll ask you for a token, which you can find in your Ibex Pay settings, and then just copy paste that token into Shopify through the Ibex Pay plugin. And now you're able to add Lightning as a payment option to all of your customers globally.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that. That's really cool. And now your partnerships. I want to ask you about some partnerships, whatever you're able to speak about. I know your
Mhm.
Grupo Salinas, I hope I pronounced that right. Grupo
Yeah.
Salinas. I remember reading about that great partnership. How is that going? If you can tell us about that. What type of feedback are you getting from your partners or from even from your merchants? And how are you evolving accordingly based on that feedback and any new partnerships coming up?
Yeah. Unfortunately, new partnerships we can't really announce until they go
Of
live.
course, yeah.
I can tell you the characteristics of the customers that have changed, like I
That'd
mentioned
be
at the
great. Yeah.
start, where it's a lot more fintechs and traditional finance oriented and traditional businesses that are looking into this technology and how they can leverage it to become more efficient and find a lot of savings and de-risk their operations, by the way, because again, the finality, the instant settlement is really powerful. And then on the Ibex Pay side, we're seeing mostly Bitcoiners globally really go into this technology. We like to encourage non-Bitcoiners to also do it, but we know that right now it's still, why would I do this? Nobody's using it, nobody's paying with it, but we hope to change that narrative as we go along. Um, and so yeah, those are basically our two things. I think the technology has been growing nicely. There's nice adoption in all of this. Of course, you always have certain drop-offs as you go along, but right now we have over 1,000 merchants active this year
Wow.
on the Ibex Pay side, which is really encouraging. We're seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 signups per week. So that's also very encouraging. And coming back to a point you made, that how can listeners get engaged and stuff, is once you have that Lightning wallet, once you activated your Cash App Lightning functionality, go online, search which merchants accept Lightning payments. There are lists over there, and go to that merchant and see if they actually accept it.
Exactly. It's
And ask to pay with Lightning. And once we get that ball rolling, that's when we get enough adoption.
Yes. And I think another important point is that it's easy to convert back to fiat if needed. You don't have to stay and live the Bitcoin standard. And that's another confusion for people. It's like, why am I going to use Lightning? I have fiat. You can convert it very easily. And that's important. And I
Yeah,
like that Ibex does that conversion. I think it's a
yeah,
very low fee as well, right?
yeah. Yeah, we try to keep it around 1% all in with the movement of money. Right now, there's only certain jurisdictions in which we can offer this fiat conversion. As I mentioned, we have to work with the regulations and within the scope of what is allowed in each jurisdiction. And we're working on a really interesting partnership. Again, can't really
Can't
talk
tell the
about
name,
it
but
right now,
that sounds exciting.
but that's going to allow for every merchant in the US to actually convert instantly into fiat
We got a
in the
hint there.
US.
We got a
Yeah,
hint of the type of partnership. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
exciting. So,
So that should be coming online in the next coming weeks, and very
ooh,
excited about that. And to your point, I believe Cash App right now, like, don't hold me to it, but last time we did some tests, I believe we could spend directly our Cash App dollars through Lightning.
oh,
And that's really cool,
that's
because then
very
you can
cool.
you keep your money in dollars. You're just paying through Lightning.
See, that is great. That I think, in my opinion, will help this adoption because that helps, like you said earlier, how fiat and Bitcoin not only can coexist, but they help each other
Mhm.
and help build the global community. So that's
A-
that's brilliant. I like that.
And that technology is actually a technology we have going live with one of our uh, biggest customers in Central America, Osmo Wallet. So if you're living in Central America, download Osmo Wallet. They will they allow you to get into Quetzales to spend your Quetzales over Lightning. We have a bunch of merchants in Guatemala accepting Lightning now. They have a nice list on their app, and you can start doing this right now. I mean, you don't have to wait. And then if you're an Osmo customer and you find yourself in El Salvador, where everybody, or not everybody really, but most people, most merchants have a Lightning payment solution, then you don't even have to worry about, do I convert into dollars? Do I not? You just carry your wallet around, your local currency, which is quetzales, and you spend in dollars in El Salvador, and it's seamless.
Love that. So seamless. And we have quite a few listeners that are based in Central and South America. So that's very important. Thank you so much for letting everyone know about that, Jose. But what type of product could you share with us? What type of products you're planning on bringing out in the future? What are you thinking? What's your thinking of where you see the industry going and what needs to come out next? Anything you're working on that you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this technology is already out there, so it just makes sense for us to include it. The payment wall technology. So for, again, consumption of digital media could be really powerful, because you could put a payment wall up for 5 cents, for 2 cents. If you're reading an article, right, you can have the same snippet that you get right now, but instead of prompting your reader to go and subscribe to a service they probably won't, you can ask them, will you pay 2 cents to continue reading this article? And I believe most readers would. It's low enough that at that point, what you want is just to multiply the amount of readers you're getting. And that would be a beautiful thing for online publication. The other technology we're going to be rolling out soon is the payment streaming technology. So to allow, again, podcasters, or not really the podcasters per se, but companies like YouTube, Spotify, etc., integrate this technology into their products, and give the content creators the ability to charge per second for the content they created. And then last but not least, we will be working on delivering stable coins over Lightning, so integrating those protocols that allow for that to happen.
Wow. Any which stable coins, like could you share with us some ideas on that?
Well, right now it's still in the lab phase,
Mm-hmm.
broadly speaking, so across the whole system, but it's maturing quickly. And basically what this would allow is anybody to mint a stable coin or bring in stable coins that already exist, such as, let's say, the most popular is USDT and USDC, onto the Lightning Network, and allow for
Wow.
transaction of USDT and USDC natively on Lightning.
Wow, that is awesome. I have to say that could be the corner that we're waiting to turn just to get this to exponentially, it just explode. It just seems like this industry and this Lightning network is the future and just ready to be mass adopted across the world. It seems just seamless. I love this. Jose, this has been absolutely amazing. Did I miss anything that you'd like to add? You're so brilliant. You have so much, you're like a wealth of information when it comes to payments. Anything else you'd like to add to this?
No, I think you did a great job asking me questions, and I think we covered pretty much all of it.
Well, I'd
So
love to
thank
meet
you
up
very
with,
much.
thank you. I'd love to meet up with you again, maybe the end of this year, and touch base about these new products and new technology and how the industry is evolving. So in the meantime, please tell everyone how they can follow you and find out all these new updates, and tell us about Ibex's amazing websites.
Absolutely. So you can find Ibex at poweredbyibex.io. You can find Ibex Pay at ibexpay.io, and you can find both of those with the corresponding ads in Twitter. And my Twitter handle is at JLLEMUS. And so feel free to give a follow. I try to post there at least once a week with exciting news of things that are coming, whether it's me speaking on a podcast with you or some other nice piece of information of partnerships that we're doing or new technology that's being rolled out.
Well, a true disruptor and pioneer in this Lightning network. Ibex Pay, Jose Lemus, thank you so much. And we'll thank you to all the listeners, and we look forward to meeting up again soon.
Thank you very much.